Hello and welcome to Unacademy, a one-stop destination for all the English medium civil service aspirants. As usual, we have started with this practice last week. We will continue with the discussion. This is the second episode of Economy Weekly Recap, wherein we are going to cover certain very important current affairs topics which have appeared in different newspapers in the last 1 week. So the list of the articles is available to all of you. These are the 8 very important topics that have been appearing in different newspapers such as Financial Express, Economic Times, Indian Express, etc. Let's understand the importance of all of these articles. Now, before I start with the discussion, the first important article, before I start with that, 2 very important announcements. First one, last week we had the first episode of Economic Weekly Recap. And in the comment section, many of you were asking me, sir, where is the notes for this? And where is the notes for these 8 topics that you are covering? There is an attachment. Please go to the descriptive section. There is an attachment, or you can log into the website. You will get the notes for the topics that I'm covering. That is the first very important announcement. Second, much more important, for the benefit of the students, starting today, for this week, we have started with certain special classes. At 1 p.m. starting today, every day till Saturday, that is from Monday till Saturday, Chetan sir will be taking certain important lectures in the concept or under the series of Fundamentals of International Relations. At 5 p.m., History Revisited, certain lectures will be taken by Abhishek sir. At 6 p.m., Economy Simplified, lectures will be taken by Shyam sir, and those who are wondering who is Shyam sir, I am that person. And at 8 p.m, Polity Basics, the classes will be taken by Sarmat sir. And for more information, please go to the description section of this video. You will get the links for all these special classes. So please use these classes, get the benefit as much as possible. Inform your friends also. No doubt they are your competitors, but they can also get a lot of benefit by attending these classes. So with this caveat, let me start the discussion. The first very important article appeared in Hindu newspaper, Aadhaar based pay, a bad idea for Manrega. I am saying Manrega, that is basically Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment, right, the guarantee scheme. Manrega is act and the scheme is basically yes. Now, what are the important points? Why is this article so important? Now, it's not the first time that there is a discussion of Government of India introducing the concept of ABPS. ABPS simply stands for Aadhaar Based Payment System. From the last 1 year, Government of India has been trying to introduce this idea where whatever workers who will get the wage opportunities under Manrega or the scheme, their wages will be paid through a concept called as Aadhaar based payment system. Now, what is this idea? What is this concept of ABPS? Why there is a criticism? Why there is a opposition to this? Why did Government of India postpone it multiple times and finally said, nothing doing, we are going to go ahead with this idea now. Now, please understand, whenever a person is working under Manrega, let's imagine I'm an employee under Manrega, I'm a wage worker. Until now, if I have to receive the wages, whenever the wages are supposed to be paid to me, there were 2 options which were available. One option was basically account-based payment. Right? There's a system called as NACH. I'll come to that. Second one is, which was proposed by the government, ABPS, Aadhaar-based payment system. Now, what is the basic difference between both of them? If I'm a Manrega wage worker, and if my wages are paid through the account-based system, I will have to provide my account number. I'll have to provide the IFSC code of my bank. IFSC basically is an identification number for a banking branch. Apart from this, I'll also have to give the details of the account holder, my details. So, a lot of details were provided by me. On the other side, what Government of India proposed was, let's have a payment system through ABPS. What is this ABPS? I'll just tell you a basic process here. I'm the wage worker under Manrega. My account number will be basically seeded with my Aadhaar number. The concept of seeding is very, very famous now. Seeding means connecting my account with my Aadhaar. So first my account number will be seeded with my Aadhaar, and now this Aadhaar number will be mapped under ABPS system. That is, in simple terms, my Aadhaar number will be used as a financial address. I hope you understand the importance now. My Aadhaar number will be used by the government as my financial address. That is, my Aadhaar number will be the basis on which the payment of wages will be done. Now, why this was proposed? Why government is pushing for this model? Why not the earlier model, which is much easier in the sense, I am giving my details and the funds will be transferred into my account. That is basically the earlier payment system. So please understand this. Government says an individual may have multiple bank accounts. Possible? Anybody in the class who says, no sir, one individual has only one bank account? No, I can have 4 to 5 bank accounts. You can have 4 to 5 bank accounts. In fact, I'm pretty sure you must have seen certain people, because they want to collect. They want to become collectors of what? Collectors of debit cards. So they'll keep on opening bank accounts in multiple banks and they will have multiple debit cards. And you'll be able to see that on very much of a display. Whenever they'll open the wallet in front of you, you'll see 4 to 5 debit cards, 7 to 8 credit cards, etc., etc. So argument of Government of India is that, one, a customer or let's say a beneficiary can have multiple bank accounts. That is possible. Whereas I will have only one Aadhaar number. You will have only one Aadhaar number. So government says a beneficiary, be it any beneficiary, they can have multiple bank accounts. Now they will have only one Aadhaar number. It is easier for the government to identify who is a beneficiary and transfer the accounts which is basically seeded. The latest bank account which has been seeded to this Aadhaar number will be the one where the funds will be transferred. So the benefit is simple. The beneficiary doesn't have to provide multiple documents, multiple details. All they need to do is seed the account with Aadhaar, and then the mapping will be done. You can have multiple bank accounts. Many of you will basically say, sir, even then it is not that clear. It is very difficult to understand this. You can have multiple bank accounts. You will seed all of these accounts with your Aadhaar number. Now this Aadhaar detail will be taken and whatever is the latest bank account, into that funds would be transferred. This process is called as a seeding and mapping. Once the accounts are seeded, they'll be brought under ABPS, which is called as a mapping process. And we'll understand the problem related to this later. So first advantage, right? You don't have to provide lot of details, only your Aadhaar is sufficient. Second, there can be duplicate job cards. Possible? This has been happening. Government of India itself has said earlier under Manrega, duplicate job cards have been created. The funds have been misused. Subsidies have been misused under various schemes. But now, I will identify a beneficiary using Aadhaar. And government says Aadhaar is almost universal in India. Most of the population is covered under Aadhaar. So it is easier for me to eliminate the duplicate job cards or fake job cards. And because Aadhaar is almost universal now, it will be easier for me to target Aadhaar as a financial address of the beneficiary and transfer the funds into the latest seeded bank account with this Aadhaar number. So these are the arguments which have been put forward by Government of India. Apart from this, government also says in case of ABPS system, the funds can be transferred much faster. The funds can be transferred much faster. Although the criticism is that, I'll come to that later, the term faster is not very significant. That is, the time reduction is not very significant here. And another very important advantage that has been cited by the government to introduce IBPS is basically the rejections. the rejections, that is the fund transfer rejections, are very minimal, right, under the ABPS system. So these are some of the reasons that have been cited by the government to introduce the ABPS system whenever the payment of wages has to be done under Manrega. Now, having understood the advantages or the benefits, many of you look at the advantages and jump to a conclusion, not even come, jump to a conclusion and say that, great, this system should be adopted by the government. But you'll have to look at both the sides of the argument. When you're writing, let's say, a mains-based answer, do not write only one-sided the argument, also provide the counter side of the argument. So government says these are the reasons, so I'll make it compulsory now. Then what are the concerns? Are there any problems with this kind of a model of payment under Manrega? Of course, yes. Let's look at them one by one. First, very important concern that has been raised by various experts is, the government says the funds can be transferred much faster. And to prove that point, Government of India has taken a survey that was conducted by one institution by the name of LibTech. LIBTCH. They have basically taken the survey which was conducted by LibTech and say, okay, see, the survey proves that the funds can be transferred much faster. But various experts look at the survey and said, the sample size that was taken for the conducting survey is very small. And moreover, whatever the findings are there, how sooner can you transfer the funds, the reduction in the timing is not very significant. It's not very significant. It's just right, an incremental change in the timing. So that is the first reason or first criticism that has been laid by various experts regarding this model. Second one, the same survey, right, that is the same institution which conducted survey also has stated that in the last couple of years, Government of India has been cancelling lot of job cards. Repeat, the Government of India, that is, it is basically being implemented by Ministry of Rural Development. Lot of these job cards have been cancelled by the government. How much? Around 7.6 crore. Around 7.6 crore, not a small number. Not a small number. Around 26 crore job card holders are there now. 7.6 crore job cards have been cancelled by the government. Now, on the other side, government says that this is a very common exercise. It's not that we are doing it only at this point of time. It was done earlier also. Over a period of time, be it for Manrega, be it for any scheme, we need to rationalize. If we find that certain people do not require these kind of schemes, then we'll cancel their job cards. If we find that duplicate job cards have been generated, we will cancel the job cards. There is nothing new. But experts point out the number of cards which have been cancelled is very high. So definitely yes, this is one of the concern. Third concern which has been raised is, whenever these kind of schemes are implemented, for example, take Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana or direct benefit transfer, etc., where the Yojana accounts have been utilized. And even here also, the bank accounts will be utilized. One concern which has been raised by experts is that government, in order to roll out the scheme, will put a lot of pressure on the banking sector. And the banks, in order to meet whatever are the objectives set up by the government, will put a lot of pressure on the workforce, the workers or the employees of the bank, and try to achieve the targets. And the people who are supposed to implement these schemes at the ground level, because they are under a lot of pressure to meet these targets, they will at most of the times or a lot of times will simply not be focused on the guidelines, will not be focused on consent of the card holders or consent of the bank account holders, etc. They will try to somehow get these consents, somehow get the targets met. For example, in case of the concept of mapping means all the seeded accounts will be brought under the ABPS. In the concept of mapping of these accounts, you are supposed to take the consent of the account holders. You are supposed to take the consent of the account holders. Now, many of the times it has been seen that the banking correspondents will show certain document, will pitch certain benefits to the beneficiaries, And lot of times these beneficiaries do not understand for what forms they are signing. By looking at the announcement or let's say the explanation of the banking correspondent, they'll simply sign wherever the banking correspondent will ask them to sign. So in that particular situation, a customer, a bank customer, and mind you, these are the people who are living in rural part of India. You might simply say, sir, they are supposed to read all the documents. It is their fault, etc. You're talking about rural population. You're talking about that kind of a population, right, which needs a lot of assistance. They may be or may not be literates. They may not understand the implications of the forms on which they are signing. So it has been found that for seeding, for mapping, many of the times proper guidelines have not been followed. The process has not been followed. And I'll give a very simple example. Couple of months ago, certain beneficiaries who are supposed to receive amount from the government, they did not receive the amount. And when they checked, they realized that some of them, they have received the amount in some other account which was owned by them only. But that is not the latest account which has been opened by them. Or they have opened a latest account, right? The funds have gone into that, but they don't know that the funds have gone into their latest account. For some of them, the mapping was done erroneously. Erroneously in the sense, imagine a name such as Ramesh, Satish, or even for that matter, many names, XYZ, which are very, very common in India. So don't you think there is a possibility of somebody else's bank account being mapped with somebody else's identification? Possible, very much possible. So in case of these kind of initiatives, these kind of outcomes are possible where funds might fall into somebody else's account. Diversion of the funds is very much possible. Fourth concern which has been raised regarding this initiative. I am a beneficiary. I am a Manrega wage worker. Now the funds have not come into my bank account. Whom should I approach? What is the grievance redressal mechanism? How the funds are transferred? The transparency, the process is not very much transparent. That is one more concern which has been raised regarding the function of the or let's say this initiative Government of India, where now government says all the wages under, right, the Manrega will be transferred through ABPS itself, right? All these funds will be transferred through ABPS. In fact, many of the experts have stated that out of 26 crore job card holders, I repeat, out of 26 crore job card holders under Manrega now, only around 16 to 17 crore are eligible to receive their funds under ABPS. What about the remaining beneficiaries? Right, so there is a concern. There is a concern which has been raised by various stakeholders in the system. Now, to be very precise, the Government of India also stated that if there are any concerns from one village to another village, from one panchayat to another panchayat, if there are any concerns regarding the implementation of ABPS under Manrega, we can go for exemptions. We can provide exemptions, right, for these, right, let's say villages or panchayats. So these are certain very important points regarding this initiative of the government. Based on the discussion, I've given a descriptive question. The idea of making Manrega payments through ABPS has benefits, but it suffers from certain flaws. Elaborate in 250 words. Now, next important article which appeared in Business Line. The Finance Ministry has reduced the import duty on the mobile parts in the range of 3 to 5%. The prices are expected to drop. Now, what is given in the article, let me explain that. Then let's do a critical evaluation. That is much more important for you. Very simple. Here is a mobile manufacturer of a smartphone. Smartphone mobile manufacturer. Now, this smartphone mobile manufacturer will import lot of components. And because he is importing that into the domestic market, the government will impose, until very recently, used to impose a duty of 15% on the import of these components. Now, what Government of India said, some of these components which are imported, I will reduce the tariff from 15% to 10%. Very simple. The government says, I will reduce the tariff from 15 to 10%. Now, what can happen? Again, there's a difference of opinion here also. What can happen as a result of this? The two opinions exactly opposite to each other. One opinion or one set of experts say, because the cost of imports will become cheaper, now the mobile manufacturer will import it at lower cost, manufacture it and sell it at lower cost. Sell it at lower cost. How much lower? Varies from 3 to 5%. The prices might come down in the range of 3 to 5%. This is one opinion. On the other side, the other opinion says, no, do not expect the prices to come down. What might happen is, these manufacturers will import it at lower tariff, manufacture but sell it at the same price by increasing their margins. They will increase the margins. In the whole supply chain system, the margins might increase. They will not reduce the price. Now, some of you will basically argue and say, sir, how is that possible? Right? These people, if they are importing at lower cost, lower tariff, they should transfer the benefit. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Why? The experts are of the opinion that when these are going to import and manufacture smartphone in India right now, manufacturing of premium smartphones is being preferred. They are manufacturing premium smartphones. And when you say premium smartphones, and that is the having a higher demand in the domestic market, the customers such as you and me, we are not so much worried about lowering of the prices. Even if they are selling at the same prices, because these are premium smartphones, customers will not be bothered about reduction in the prices. They will continue to consume them or purchase them, although these suppliers or the sellers will not reduce the price. Now, this is basically what has been discussed here. Let's go beyond this. Let's understand what is happening in the current affairs. I'll basically divide this blank part into two parts here. Understand the discussion very carefully. Why should Government of India reduce the tariffs? Why should Government of India reduce the tariff? And on the other side, why it should not reduce the tariff? Because there were two arguments couple of weeks ago. One, there is an association by the name of Indian Cellular and Electronics Association, ICEA. This association brought out a paper and argued that Government of India should reduce the tariffs. But on the other side, there is one more initiative by the name of GTRI, Global Trade Research Initiative. GTRI came out with one more paper and said, no, government should not reduce the tariffs on these mobile imports. Not needed. Why? You will understand it now. So, there are two sides to this argument. Please understand both the sides. First one, why should Government of India reduce? The average tariffs which are imposed by Government of India are higher. For example, they will show the data for China, how much is the average tariff. It is somewhere around 3.7%. And for India, the average is somewhere around 8.5%. Now, you please tell me, if you are importing, right, any raw material, in this case mobile phones, and you are paying a higher tariff compared to China, don't you think cost of manufacturing would be higher? And if the cost of manufacturing is higher, automatically the market price would be higher. And if the market price is higher, what will happen to export competitiveness? It's a simple chain. Connect the dots. What will happen to your export competitiveness? Your export competitiveness will be lesser. And this paper says this is the precise reason why our exports are not increasing. Why our exports are not increasing. So, this is the argument as to why Government of India should reduce the tariffs on the imports. But let me add one more point here. Government of India has implemented various schemes such as PLI, Production Linked Incentive Scheme. Government also has an initiative by the name of RODTEP, right? Basically argument, these tariffs might become counterproductive to achieve the objectives. Now, these are the arguments in favor of why should Government of India reduce a tariff on the import. What about arguments against reduction? right? What is this other paper says? Why we should not reduce the tariffs? Why should Government of India continue with the same tariff? First one, there are various initiatives under Government of India. There are various schemes or initiatives wherein the same manufacturer can import and pay lesser tariff. For example, there is an initiative of Government of India by the name of EPCG, Export Promotion of Capital Goods, where the import of capital goods will be with zero tariffs. There is one more initiative, Export Oriented Unit, etc. So the argument of the other side is that no need, government should not reduce it. Government can keep it at the same 15% only. Let them import it under these initiatives. They will not pay any tariffs. So that will become an advantage for them. First one. Second one, if you reduce the tariff, these importers will import these raw materials rather than manufacturing in India. Rather than manufacturing in India, they will start importing because the imports will become cheaper now. So domestic manufacturing cannot be promoted. Domestic manufacturing or domestic production cannot be promoted with lowering of the import tariff, right? That is in simple terms. Even in recent times, I hope you have heard of this particular argument of the government. We will promote, right, localization. We'll basically promote manufacturing in the domestic market. So if you reduce the import duties on these imports, I will import it. Why should I manufacture it in the domestic market? Third one, right, third concern which has been raised by the opposite side is, if you reduce the imports, there will be a lot of these companies which rather than manufacturing will start assembling the products in the domestic market. All of you okay with this? I'll repeat the statement. If you start reducing the tariff, lot of these companies rather than manufacturing will start assembling the product in the domestic market. Now many of you will simply ask me, sir, what do you mean by manufacturing and assembly? Can everybody see this bottle in my hand? Let me know. Right? Can everybody see the bottle in my hand? Now, one way to have this bottle in the domestic market is manufacture the bottle. Manufacture the bottle. Another way is, I will simply import this cap from one country and I will import this bottle, or let's say the lower part, from another country. I will simply fix both of them and the bottle is ready. So I hope you understand the difference between manufacturing and assembling. So the concern is, they will simply import the raw material or they will simply import the components of mobile phone. They will not manufacture. They will assemble and sell it in India. And over a period of time, if these kind of initiatives are withdrawn, the taxes are increased, etc., these companies will pack their bags, close the company and go out of India. Investment will not be staying for a longer duration. So these are the two sides of the argument regarding, should Government of India reduce, not reduce? If reduce, what will happen? If they do not reduce, what will happen? Okay. Now, that is the discussion regarding that. And please understand this. The questions regarding this can be asked in UPSC prelims also, can be asked in UPSC mains as well. But you should have, always remember, you should have a full-fledged argument, the pro argument as well as the cons argument, if you want to write a very, very good quality answer for these kind of questions. Third article, government brings non-urea fertilizers under price control, fixes profit margins. Important. Why? Let's try and understand this. All of you know, in India we produce fertilizers. In the last couple of classes, I've been hammering this particular point. Fertilizers. Production is done, but the production is not sufficient to satisfy the demand. We import. And what kind of fertilizers? I'll put urea on one side, the diammonium phosphate and a muriate of potash on the other side. Right? These three are important. Apart from this, we also can have complex fertilizers such as NPKs complexes. So urea, diammonium phosphate and muriate of potash. Until now, or let's say even now, for urea, government will announce the MRP. Is it okay? The government announces MRP. That is, at what price The urea will be sold in the market that is decided by the government, not by the private sector company, not by the manufacturer. Regulation of the prices. What about the other side? Diammonium phosphate and muriate of potash. From the year 2010, please remember this, suddenly UPSC can ask you this now. From the year 2010, Government of India introduced a new type of a scheme for a DAP and MOP by the name of Nutrient Based Subsidy, NBS, Nutrient Based Subsidy. And what is this idea for nutrient based subsidy? If I am a manufacturer of a diammonium phosphate, what nutrients I will consume? Nutrients, nothing but the minerals, right? So, how much nitrogen I will consume, how much phosphorus I will consume, etc. Government would decide per kg, that is based on the quantity. Per kg or per ton, subsidy was decided by the government. And based on the subsidy, based on that decision, based on the consumption of the nutrients, government would provide subsidy to me. I would receive subsidy, manufacture, sell it at a price, right, which was again decided by me in the market. Now, although I am saying it was decided by me, in the sense the manufacturer in the last couple of years, because of the pandemic, because of Russia-Ukraine war, Government of India had already started regulating, Government of India had already started trying to ensure that these fertilizers are sold at certain prices in the market by increasing subsidy. But now Government of India has introduced a new formula. Understand this? Government of India has introduced, right, a new type of a pricing methodology which is called as a reasonable pricing methodology. And many of you will ask me, sir, is it fair? Is Government of India allowed to decide at what prices the sellers can sell in the market? Of course, yes. There is a law by the name of Essential Commodities Act, ECA, very, very famous. Essential Commodities Act. And under Essential Commodities Act, the Government of India, if they identify any commodity as an essential commodity, the government, state governments, etc., they can impose restrictions, regulations over the production, the distribution, supply, etc. The government has a power. And please remember this, now Government of India says, and when I say Government of India, it is basically fertilizers will come under Ministry of Chemicals. Please remember this, fertilizers will come under Ministry of Chemicals. And I'm saying this for a very simple reason. A lot of you, if this kind of question is asked in prelims, the fertilizer subsidy will come under which ministry? If the first option is Ministry of Agriculture, by default you will jump to Ministry of Agriculture without realizing, without knowing that it is not Ministry of Agriculture, it is Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers. So the fertilizer subsidy comes under the Ministry of Chemicals. Okay, please remember. Point number 2, Essential Commodities Act mainly is coming under, that is, Essential Commodities Act is administered by the Ministry of Consumer Affairs. Ministry of Consumer Affairs. Okay, now come back to the point here. So now what Government of India says is, for urea anyways, we are deciding the MRP. We are deciding MRP for urea. What about diammonium phosphate? What about muriate of potash? What about other complexes? The producers, in order to earn more profit, they can, right, increase their prices, earn more and more profit. And as such, there is always a concern that these other two fertilizers, the diammonium phosphate and muriate of potash, we are importing. No doubt, right, these fertilizers we are producing in India, not all of them, we are producing in India. Right, for example, MOP, we import it. Right, we don't produce, we import it. Whereas urea, diammonium phosphate, other fertilizers, we manufacture, we also import them. So now the concern is, as such, the consumption of fertilizers is very high in India. We want to regulate the consumption, regulate in the sense control these kind of chemical fertilizer consumption. And not just that, we also want to put more and more regulations over how much profits are earned by the companies which are manufacturing and selling these fertilizers in India. That is the precise reason for DAP, MOP now, government has introduced a new formula. right? All the government says, right, this will be a reasonable pricing methodology. It is as good as saying government is controlling the prices now. Although you can't say that, indirectly they are trying to control the prices. How so? Now government says, if I'm manufacturing, let's say the diammonium phosphate, if I'm manufacturing in India, then the margin simple is nothing but profits. So the margin that I can make is 8%, 12% and 10%. Now what is this 8, 10 and 12? If I'm an importer, when I sell it, my margins should not be more than 8%. If I'm a manufacturer, if I manufacture and sell it, my margins should not be more than 10%. And if I'm a integrated manufacturer, right? Many of you ask me, sir, what do you mean by integrated manufacturer? Integrated manufacturers are those who will produce both intermediaries for a fertilizer as well as the finished fertilizer product. So if I'm an integrated fertilizer manufacturer, the margin for me should not be more than 12%. Now coming to the question which most of you might be having, or that ticker will be running your mind. Sir, how government of India will come to know what is my margin? Very simple. Government says all these companies will have to submit audited accounts to the government now. They will have to submit the audit of pricing mechanism. And if government comes to know that, looking at their data, if government of India comes to know that these people are earning more than 8, 10 or 12% for these respective manufacturers and sellers, whatever extra margin they've earned by 10th of October, they will have to give it to government. They will have to simply submit it, give it back to the government. Now coming to another question, many of you ask me, sir, what if they don't give? Right, I'm a manufacturer, I will not give it. What will the government do? Government says, I will impose penalty. If you do not submit it back to me, I'll start imposing penalty. That is one. Second one, when you will pay that with a delay, I will impose interest also on that. Because you are paying me after a delay, I will impose interest on that. And third one, right, some of you will simply say, sir, I will not give also. Forget about, right, the interest, I will not pay the amount only. Then what will government do? My dear, these are implemented retrospectively now. Starting 1st of April 2023, you are supposed to receive certain subsidy from the government. Government will say, if you do not pay it, I will adjust it in the subsidy payment that I am supposed to make to you. So these are certain very important points regarding the fertilizer pricing control, that is reasonable pricing measures that have been announced by the government very recently regarding fertilizers in India. Based on this, I have given a question here. Consider the following statements. The Minister of Agriculture administers the Essential Commodities Act. No, it is the Ministry of Consumer Affairs. Under the Act of the government, under the Act, the government can issue control orders regarding the production, distribution and pricing of essential commodities. Yes, first statement is wrong. Second statement is correct. Right option for the question will be option B, only 2 is correct. Next article, Center starts survey on participation of women in workforce. Very important. Why? Question on this can come in economics, can come under the inclusive growth, can come under social issues as well. Now, what are the important points that you must carry from these kind of articles? Point number 1, in case of India, male population participates in the workforce, female population also participates in the workforce. But how do we measure? What are the tools which we are using to measure how many men are there, how many women are there in the workforce? For that, we conduct a survey. Please remember the name of the survey, PLFS. PLFS, which is conducted by NSO, which functions under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. PLFS stands for Periodic Labor Force Survey. Periodic Labor Force Survey. Under the Periodic Labor Force Survey, we measure employment, unemployment, worker population ratio, right, labor force participation rate, etc. The survey is conducted for a quarter. It is conducted by a quarter, for a quarter, and it is also conducted for the full financial year. For the full financial year. Now, as per the latest data that has been published under PLFS, the labor force participation rate, I'll repeat it, the female labor force participation rate in 2017 and 18 was somewhere around 23%. I'm rounding off the number. In 2017 and 18, the female labor force participation rate was somewhere around 23%. And the recent data for 22 and 23, it says it has increased to 37%. It has increased to 37%, which means, again, those who are wondering what is this female labor force participation rate, out of the total female population, working age group population, how many female, right? How many female are willing to work? How many are searching for jobs, etc. That is called as female labor force participation rate. So, the female labor force participation rate, no doubt, has increased from 23% to 37%. And many of you looking at this data will say, good. So, the participation of female in the working population, labor force participation rate has increased. But various experts say that, look at this data, one point of concern is there. What is the point of concern? Yes, there is an increase in the female labor force participation rate, no doubt. But lot of this increase in the female labor force participation rate comes from an area where there is no guaranteed salary that is given to female workers. For example, the people, or let's say the female workers who will provide the daily cleaning activities. These kind of workers do not have a fixed salary. There is no guaranteed salary at the end of the month. So that is a precise reason a concern has been raised. Point number one. Now, what is the government of India trying to do here? Very simple. Two agencies, right? One, the Union Ministry of Labour, and second one, EPFO, right? Employment Provident Fund Organization. So, Ministry of Labour plus EPFO, they want to find out, one, how many organizations are there in India which will provide quality workforce, quality of work to the female labor force. And second, they want to start a grading process. They want to find out which companies are doing very well, which companies are lagging behind. And how they are trying to do that? Very simple. EPFO says they have around 30 crore people, right, registered under EPFO. They have around 30 crore people who are registered under EPFO, and EPFO is sending a survey to all of them. They are basically sending this survey document to all of these female workers, and they are trying to get an answer to multiple questions. In fact, again, don't by heart the type of questions which are asked. They are saying the survey is very much detailed. For example, they are asking questions such as, is there equal pay for same kind of work for both men and women? Is it given? Are the women in your company, are they allowed to work during night time? That is, night shift is allowed. And if there is a night shift, is the company providing a safe transportation to this female workforce? Right? Does the company have an internal committee whenever the cases or there are complaints of sexual harassment, which is supposed to be done under prevention of sexual harassment guidelines? Is the company providing you with creche facilities, that is child care facilities? Is the company allowing you to work from home? Is there flexibility of type of work, etc.? So they are saying the survey is very detailed, and these kind of questions, for these kind of questions, answers have been sought from the female workforce. And what is the utility? They are trying to find out whether these companies are providing quality facilities, or let's say the quality of work environment. They are trying to find out, and they are trying to ascertain which companies are doing well, which companies require improvement, etc. Now, many of the respondents, because they will be concerned that if I provide, right, a reply, and if my name is there, and if I have not given a very good feedback about the company, then the employer might take action against me. They might retaliate against me. That's the reason in these survey forms, the name of the respondent is not required. Anonymity, name of the respondent is not required. other details of the company, and the answer to the questions, right, are being sought here. So these are certain very important points regarding the Government of India starting, right, that is basically the Ministry of Labour starting, right, a survey to find out the participation of women in the workforce. Next, to control the price of the rice, millers have been told to declare stocks. That is point number 1. And more importantly, Government of India is going to launch a new type of sale of a rice, or let's say, when I say type, it is not a quality or the type of rice. It's a new product which is going to be launched by the government, Bharat Rice. Two very important points here. One is Bharat Rice, and the second one, millers have been asked to submit data to the government. Why? Why is the Government of India doing all of this? And please understand this, the term, right, or this brand Bharat is very, very important now. Again, not because of political reasons, because Government of India is trying to introduce new type of products in the market with the brand name of Bharat. For example, couple of months ago, government introduced Bharat pulses, right? Bharat pulses were introduced. That is basically a type of pulse was sold with the brand name of Bharat, right? The wheat was sold, the wheat flour was sold in the name of Bharat Atta, right? Fertilizers are being sold in the market with the brand name of Bharat Fertilizers. So I hope you understand that brand name Bharat is becoming very, very important now. Now come to the point, why is the Government of India trying to introduce or sell Bharat Rice? What is the importance of this newspaper article? And more importantly, why is the price of rice increasing? Because if you read newspapers, very often you will come across one article. Food Corporation of India has sufficient stock of food grains. Second, you'll also read in the newspaper, agriculture production is reaching new record heights. So on one side, we are reading that FCA has sufficient stocks, agriculture production is very high, but at the same point of time, price of the rice is also increasing. How is that possible? Don't you think both of the news articles are contradicting each other? Not necessarily. Understand the logic behind it. Let me address the question, why is the price of rice remained elevated in India? What are the reasons behind it? Point number 1, the food inflation, right? It's nothing new to all of you now. Food inflation has remained elevated in India, right? Continuously for the last 1.5 years, inflation has been a cause of concern, and within that also, food inflation has remained very sticky. And if you look at the rise of prices for, let's say, rice now, for rice, the wholesale price inflation index for rice has been more than 15% for the last 1 year. The retail price inflation rate has remained at around 14% plus for rice in the last 1 year. Right? The prices have increased by more than 14% and 15% under both WP as well as CPI only for rice. Why so? What is the background to this? Point number 1, the MSP that is paid by the government. Very simple. Let's go point by point. MSP paid by the government. Now many of you, right, and listen to me carefully. Before you start criticizing me, listen to me carefully. Sir, you're so bad. You're telling MSP policy of the government is not good. No, I'm connecting it to inflation here. So MSP policy of government is announced by the government. Rice is procured by the government. But all the quality, all the kinds of rice varieties are not procured by the government. As per various experts, MSP that is paid and procured for rice varieties, these are, right, certain inferior, low quality rice varieties. Low quality rice varieties. Now, if Government of India pays a MSP and FCI procures low quality rice variety, farmers, in order to earn more MSP, earn more income, they will produce low quality rice more and more. And, right, in addition to this, what has happened is, the consumption patterns in the economy are shifting, and that is bound to happen. The consumption patterns in the economy are shifting. People, rather than consuming more and more of inferior quality rice, they are consuming better quality rice. For example, Sona Masuri, Kollam rice, etc. So consumers have shifted their consumption patterns. They are demanding more of good quality rice variety. Government pays high MSP for low quality rice variety, which means production of this is increasing. Supply is there, but the demand for this is very high. So don't you think there's a mismatch? There is a mismatch. Mismatch in the sense the production and supply of this is high, but the demand for this is very high. But the supply is not very high because the farmers are producing low quality, inferior quality rice. That has created a mismatch between supply and demand for good quality rice in the market. And that is the reason these kind of rice varieties prices have started increasing. They have remained elevated. Third reason is the procurement. The procurement that is being done by various state governments. For example, I'll take an example here. Madhya Pradesh. The state of Madhya Pradesh during the election season, very recently elections have been conducted, announced a scheme under which they will procure certain quality of rice. They decided they will procure at certain price and certain quantity based on the land sizing, they will, or land sizes, they will procure it. But the price that has been announced by the state government for procuring the rice varieties, it is 42% higher than the MSP price. Understand this. The state government is procuring and they are paying the amount which is 42% more than MSP. So if the farmers will sell the crop to the state government because the government is giving more than MSP, 42% more than MSP, automatically the supply to the domestic market, other local market will be affected. The trading price in the other markets will start increasing because government will procure and use it for its food distribution program. Government doesn't sell it in the market again. So these are some of the very important reasons. Apart from this, there is generally a very high demand for the broken rice. Exports of broken rice is very high from India, although we have imposed certain restrictions on it. Parboiled rice exports restrictions have been done. So these are some of the reasons why the prices of rice have remained elevated, have remained very, very high. So what has the government of India done in order to control the prices? In order to cool down the prices, what has the government of India done? Government of India, says, now the traders, millers, etc., they will have to declare, they will have to tell the government how much stocks they are maintaining. Because please understand this, couple of months ago, Government of India has imposed a restriction on the quantity of stocks to be held by the millers or traders, etc. So they will have to keep on disclosing this information to the government. Point number one. Regarding certain exports of certain quality of rice, restrictions have been imposed by the government. And government officials are saying, if the push comes to shove, if the situation doesn't change, then we might simply think to impose a complete ban. Complete ban can be imposed on the exports of these quality rice. Third, which is being announced by the government now, Bharat Rice. Bharat Rice, So Bharat Rice has been announced and they are going to start it very soon. Under the Bharat Rice, government says, we will sell the rice through various agencies such as NAFED, NCCF, etc. and we will sell it in a bag of 5 kgs and 10 kgs. We will sell it at a weight of a bag of 5 kgs or 10 kgs and per kg we are going to sell it at 29 rupees. At a price of 29 rupees per kg, we are going to pay subsidies for it. We are going to subsidize it in simple terms and we will sell it at around 29 rupees per kg. Apart from this, under the Bharat Rice, as of now, Government of India says will be selling 5 lakh tons. Will be selling 5 lakh tons of Bharat Rice starting in the first week of February. So these are certain very important points regarding the introduction of a new type of subsidized rice product by the government, that is Bharat Rice. Now based on the discussion, I have given a question, descriptive question here. Discuss the reforms undertaken by the government to rein in inflation, especially food inflation, in 250 words. Next article. CGST Act enacted in public interest is consumer-centric, Delhi High Court. Now, what is this argument? Why are they fighting about CGST? Why Delhi High Court has to issue this kind of an order? Let's try and understand this. Now, all of you know this. From 2017, 1st July 2017, government introduced Goods and Services Tax, GST, Goods and Services Tax. Right, for the implementation of GST, the central government had to introduce, pass and implement an act by the name of Central GST. And under the power of Central GST, various provisions are there. One provision that has been targeted by these complainants, or let's say applicants to the High Court, is the concept of anti-profiteering. Is the concept of anti-profiteering. Right, Government of India, in order to address the issue of profiteering possibility, introduced anti-profiteering provision, and based on this provision, or under the powers of this provision, government set up an act by the name of National Anti-Profiteering Authority. And a couple of months ago, let's say around more than a year ago, the National Anti-Profiteering Authority, all the powers have been taken, all the cases have been taken, and these have been transferred into one more authority now. Now come to the main point here. Why there is a litigation here? Why there is a concern which has been raised by more than 100 companies regarding this? Under the concept of anti-profiteering, no formula has been provided. And those who are wondering, sir, what is this anti-profiteering, etc., please understand. Imagine I'm a manufacturer. I'm selling, let's say, this marker at 100 rupee. Government will impose 18% GST, which means I will sell it in the market at 118 rupees. Simple CSAT calculation. Nothing to be worried here. Don't need calculator for this. I want to sell it at 100. Government, let's say, has a GST rate of 18%. I will sell it at 118 rupees. Now, if government will reduce this from 18% to, let's say, 5%, if government will reduce this from 18% to 5%, right, can I simply say I will have to sell the marker at 105? But rather than selling at 105, what if I reduce the price from 118 to 110 rupees? I will reduce the price. From 118, I will reduce it to 110. Can I call this as a situation wherein I am getting more benefit of lower rate reduction and not the consumer? The complete benefit of rate reduction, I am not transferring it to consumer, I am increasing my profitability. So unnecessary, right, unnecessarily or using certain unethical methods, if I increase my profitability, that is called as profiteering. So government was concerned that whenever they change the rates, profiteering might be done. And that is the reason, to address it, they introduced anti-profiteering provision. Specifically under that, National Anti-Profiteering Authority was established. So various companies looked at this provision. They approached the High Court, and their argument was very simple. There is no formula. Where is the formula to find out what is profiteering, what is not profiteering? Right? Hence, the provisions under CGST Act, right, these are violating our powers under our fundamental rights under Article 19. And these are in violation of Article 300A. So this was a petition that was taken to High Court. High Court looked at all of this and said, no, nothing wrong with CGST. Right? The CGST provisions have been implemented in order to protect public interest. Right? How can you say, right, this is not in public interest? When the government will reduce the tax rate, don't you think it is appropriate for you also to reduce the market prices? Yes, no doubt, no formula is there, but the High Court was of the opinion that there is no required formula for this. Formula is not required, High Court said. So the provisions that have been implemented are in public interest. These have been made in order to protect the interest of the customers. These are customer centric. Hence, the High Court has upheld the provisions of the CGST Act. So these are certain important points. Next, right, two important articles. Right, one is RBI Digital Payment Index, but before that, India casts a net for lab-grown fish research and development. Now, before you understand this, This was the Instagram post which was given or which was put by one of the favorite cricketers, right, for most of you, Mr. Virat Kohli. Last year, Virat Kohli posted this in the Instagram, and please read the caption there. You have really nailed this mock chicken tikka at a Blue Tribe official, my God. Now, those who know and those who do not know, don't worry, UPSC is not going to ask you this. Virat Kohli is a vegan. In order to, right, protect certain, let's say, certain immunity power, right, he decided that he will not be consuming meat product. He'll become a vegan, not even vegetarian, vegan. Now, many of these followers, right, many of the news outlets, many of these influencers, etc., they looked at this the post by Virat Kohli and they started debating. They started having a lot of discussion. Has Virat Kohli started consuming meat product? Because he says chicken tikka. But what they missed was one more very important term, mock chicken tikka. Now that is what is more important. Many of you make the same mistake, right? For example, UPSC in the statement will say following is not a type of, let's say, a tax. Following is not a type of an initiative. Most of you do not read the term not and, right, solve the question, come out and later realize you have made a mistake. So what is this mock chicken tikka here? Please understand, there's a term called as lab grown meat, cell based meat, lab grown meat, mock meat, right, etc. What is this idea? And the same is being discussed in this article. There's a concept of alternative proteins. There is this idea of alternative proteins. And this idea of alternative protein is very simple. All of us require protein in our food consumption. We need to intake certain amount of protein. Now, traditionally, it has been found that many people, not all of you, and do not take an offense to my statement. Traditionally, it has been seen that a lot of people satisfy their protein requirement by consuming meat. Right? It could be meat, it could be eggs, etc. So they will consume this and they will satisfy the protein requirements. Now, lot of research and development has started happening and these kind of products are available in the market, which is called as an alternative protein, wherein you are not going to satisfy the protein requirement by consuming real meat. You will basically consume it by consuming certain algae. Right? You will consume certain plant-based product such as soy, or you will consume cultured meat. You will consume cultured meat. You will consume cell-based meat. Or in simple terms, another name for this, you will consume lab-grown meat. Lab-grown meat. Now, many of you ask me, sir, what is this cultured meat? What is this lab-grown meat? And what is the connection to UPSC? Very simple. Very recently, one of the organizations under ICAR, Indian Council for Agriculture Research, it has, right, the name of this authority is Central Marine Fisheries Research Institute, CMFRI, right? So, CMFRI has entered into a joint venture or entered into an agreement with one more private sector company, Neat Meat. The name of the company is there here only, Neat Meat Biotech Company. And what they're trying to do is basically, right, to develop these alternative proteins, that is cell-based. They want to cultivate cell-based fishes. And many of you will ask me, sir, how is that possible? How is that possible? Please understand this. Under the controlled conditions, what they're trying to do is, they will take certain cells or tissues. And those are wondering what is a cell or a tissue. If you put a group of cells, you will get a tissue. Okay. So they will take certain tissue from this fish, and this tissue under the controlled conditions will be converted, will be cultivated, will be converted to form meat. I hope you understand. Right? It's like you take a part of the tissue, or else if I want to give a very common example, in your households, please tell me, have you not seen your parents, or let's say your mother, will take milk and overnight by using certain cultures, from a small amount of curd drops, right? When she will infuse that or put that into the milk, tomorrow that will become curds. In the same way here, again, don't write this in the exam. The same way here, we are taking certain tissues of this fish and we are converting that into fish meat, right? We are cultivating that into a fish meat. This is basically a cell-based meat. This is a concept of a cell-based meat. So the company, right, the Neat Meat Biotech has entered into a collaborative association with CMFRI. Now, what is the importance of it? Point number one, please understand, I'm talking overall for alternative proteins now. Alternative proteins can be utilized to promote production of lot of these meat kind of products. Alternative proteins can be generated or produced. And the advantage part, ethics part of this is, for this you do not have to kill the animal, right? Because those people who want to protect animals, they are basically against the cruelty against animals, right? They can breathe a sigh of relief because we are not killing animals here. We are not killing animals. We are simply taking a tissue part of it and we are cultivating that. We are growing that under controlled conditions, right? Which will give the same taste, the same texture as good as, right, fish meat that is being consumed. So one, right, the animal cruelty can be prevented from this kind of a product. Second one, many experts argue that the alternative proteins can be utilized to promote food security. It can be used to promote food security as well, right? So these are certain important aspects, right, related to the idea of the cell-based proteins or cell-based meat products or alternative proteins. But having said so, is there any concern that many experts are of the opinion that the texture might become same, texture of the product might become same, but the quality, right, the nutrient profile may not be matched, again may not be matched by this mimicking product. The taste, right, almost you can mimic it, but the nutrient profile may or may not be mimicked by using this kind of a cell-based protein. But more importantly, if you are thinking of just shifting to a cell-based protein now or lab-grown meat, these products are not affordable right now. These are very, very costly. These are costly products as of now. Right, so these are certain important points regarding, right, the cell-based meat product and the agreement that has been signed between these two agencies. Last article for the day, Digital Payments Index. Very, very simple article, nothing complicated here. Reserve Bank of India, right, from the last couple of years has been publishing an index, right? It is published twice in a year. This index is called as a Digital Payments Index. In the Digital Payments Index, RBI evaluates what is the performance of Indian economy under 5 parameters. And when I say Indian economy, I am not talking about the whole economy. I am talking about anything that is related to digital payments in India. The 5 parameters are digital payment infrastructure, the demand side, digital payment infrastructure, the supply side, the payment performance, the consumer centricity, and finally the payment enablers. These are the 5 parameters. And again, these are divided into sub-parameters. These are some of the sub-parameters. Very recently, RBI has published the latest change in the index, and please have a look at it. Do not by heart the number. According to the latest data, latest report which has been published by Reserve Bank of India, it says the digital payment index number has risen to 418 in month of September 2023 from 395 for the month of March 2023. Now, certain very important points. Those who are wondering, sir, it is for the month of September, we are in the month of February, why are you teaching this? My dear, this index is not published immediately after the end of the month. No, it is published with a lag of 4 months. All of you are okay with this? It is published after the end of 4 months from the date, right? So it is published after with a lag of 4 months. Point number 1. Point number 2, what does this actually indicate? The index number has increased from 395 to 418. What does it indicate? Simple. March 2018, whatever was the situation for these, right, 5 parameters back in March 2018, that will be taken with the base of 100. So with March 2018 as a base of 100, what has been the improvement in all of these parameters? These are represented in the form of index numbers. So if the index number keeps on increasing, it simply means the performance, the demand side aggregates, the supply side parameters, the payment performance, consumer centricity, etc. Under all of these, we are performing better. We are improving. That is another very, very important point. Now, another important point, just factual information, I want you to have a look at is, these 5 parameters are there. What are the weightages? Have they been given equal weightages, or is there a difference in the weightages? Please by heart this. The payment infrastructure has been given a weightage of 10%. The payment infrastructure supply side has been given a weightage of 15%. The payment performance has been given a highest weightage of 45%. The consumer centricity has been given a weightage of 5%. And finally, the payment enablers has been given a weightage of 25%. So 10, 15, 45, 5 and finally 25%. So these are the weightages that have been given to the 5 parameters which are covered under the Digital Payments Index, which is published by Reserve Bank of India. Done? So these are the 8 articles that I wanted to discuss with you people, which have appeared in different newspapers in the last 1 week. Again, next week, same time, we'll take up another 8 important articles which will appear in different newspapers in this week and have a detailed discussion next week. So that's it from my side. Before I wind up, your encouragement means a lot to us. Please do encourage us by hitting the like button and subscribing to our YouTube channel. Thank you. Have a great day. See you next week.